All right, and tonight, all eyes on Minneapolis, where anti-ICE protests continue to sweep the city following a second fatal shooting involving immigration officials over the weekend. Here now with the very latest, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Madam Secretary, thanks for being with us. I want to talk about how untenable the whole situation is and why. I'm going to get to that. There seems to be two criticisms that have emerged, and I want to give you a chance to address them. One was an ex-post 2.5 hours after the Pretti shooting, that an individual approached the officer with a 9mm semi-automatic. Officers feared for their safety. And that's why the shooting occurred. It seems, as you look at videos, that the weapon may have been stripped, though, before that happened. And I guess my question is, was that statement premature?
Well, Sean, I know you realize that that situation was very chaotic and that we were being relayed information from on the ground from CBP agents and officers that were there. We were using the best information we had at the time, seeking to be transparent with the American people and get them what we knew to be true on the ground. So we will continue to follow the investigation that the FBI is leading and giving them all the information that they need to bring that to a conclusion and make sure that the American people know the truth of the situation and how we can go forward and continue to protect the American people.
As untenable as this is, and and all these politicians pouring gasoline on what is already a difficult situation, and that's enforcement of the law, arresting the worst of the worst, and I'll get to that in a minute. The president's called for a full investigation. Stephen Miller seemed to concede that maybe some protocols weren't followed. Again, everything's hindsight 2020, and these things go down very quickly. Any lessons to be learned, handle things differently going forward?
Well, Sean, that's part of the reason why we have several layers of an investigation here. We believe that we can always do better, and we seek to do that every single day. And we want to make sure that we not only improve protocols on the ground in chaotic and volatile situations like this, but that we continue to find the truth around this situation and get the facts to the American people and make sure that we continue to do our work every day with integrity, but that we continue to be able to get criminals and dangerous people off the streets like these officers have been doing for months, ever since President Trump came back into office. They take an oath to go out and protect these communities and to keep them safe, and that's one of the jobs that they take very seriously, especially in Minneapolis, as we've seen this kind of violent riots go forward and attack them.
I think in the Renee Good case, it was more clear-cut because we had the video. Clearly, she accelerated towards an officer. Injuries were incurred by the officer, internal bleeding, as I understand it. If I'm wrong, correct me on that. I think in this case, it's a little bit different. Although I don't know why he was there with a loaded gun, and this other incident raises questions I'll ask you about in a minute here. But people seem to be upset over the term domestic terrorism. Why do you believe that's appropriate? Because you used it in both cases.
Well, Sean, we're continuing to gather information, and the FBI leading this investigation is important to make sure that we talk about both these situations appropriately. In the Renee Good situation, we have more information as it happened previously, and we'll continue to get to the truth of all of this. But we can't distract from the fact of how we got here, and we got here because we had a Biden administration that allowed an invasion over our southern border and allowed millions of people to come into our country unvetted. And we know for a fact that we had dangerous criminals and drug traffickers, murderers, terrorists, people on the suspected and known terrorist watch list that are in this country that these officers are working so hard to get off of our streets. Every single day, they work to make sure that they're not just protecting their communities, but many of them live in these communities. And so they're doing work to protect their own families as well and make sure they follow through on President Trump's promise to make America safe again.
Well, I'm gonna scroll all the violent criminals that were arrested in Minnesota. Let me ask you, though, about this video that we've been showing, and this is 10 days prior to the fatal shooting of Alex Pretti. And what you see in this video, if we can show that, you see aggressive anger, taunting, come get me, cursing, spitting, kicking, all while, carrying a firearm. What is your reaction when you see that video?
Well, clearly there's a history there of attacking our law enforcement officers and our CBP and ICE officers. And that's an example of what our officers have had to face every single day in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, and why I'm grateful that the president had the wisdom to send Tom Homan there to have conversations again to see if he can get the leaders of Governor Walz and Mayor Frey to commit to honoring our detainers and to keeping our officers safe while they do their work. We've been asking them to do this for months. They have refused to agree. We're hoping that Tom has an opportunity to restart those conversations and see if we can get them to help clean up the streets of Minneapolis.
While I ask you this next question, I will scroll the people arrested in Minnesota alone. I mean, murderers, rapists, child molesters, drug dealers, because of the bravery of all of those agents on the ground every day. These would be people on the street, and those cities and towns would be less safe and secure. And I guess when you hear the never-ending refrain from Tim Walz, Gestapo, Nazi, fascist, or, Mayor, I call him Small Fry out there, get the F out of our city. Well, if they did leave the city, all of these people would still be there, and the people in their city and the people in their state would be less safe and less secure. Do you have a message for the governor and for the mayor?
Yeah, I would tell them to be leaders and to change their rhetoric, because it is encouraging the kind of violence that we see on their streets today. Their riots are attacking our officers not just when they're doing their work, but even at night at their hotels. And they haven't allowed their law enforcement to keep them safe. Even while they're off shift, they can't go to restaurants. They can't operate safely. They've had their lives threatened and their families' lives threatened. So I would encourage the governor to work with us, the mayor to work with us to get those dangerous criminals off the streets. That's all we want. We have specifically in Minneapolis targeted human traffickers, sex traffickers, and child predators. Help us get those individuals off your streets before they create more victims. That's the work that these officers are doing every day. And they have an opportunity here just to work in partnership with federal officers who are doing exactly what the people who live in that community want them to do.
I call Hakeem Jeffries leader in name only because I think he is beholden, like Chuck Schumer is beholden to the radicals that run their party. And he had this to say about you today. I want to give you a chance to respond to that, too.
It's disgraceful. She's got to go. We are dead serious. She needs to be put on ice permanently. She's got to go.
I think somebody needs to go, and I'd start with him. That's my own opinion. Your reaction?
Well, these radicals are attacking me, but I'm just doing my job. I'm following the law, enforcing the laws like President Trump promised that he would do to keep people safe in this country. We're going to continue to go after these criminals. We're going to remove them before they have the chance to murder more Americans, to create more angel moms, and to go out and harm our children and our grandchildren. We have had violent crimes and murders drop dramatically in this country, the lowest they've been in over 100 years because of President Trump's leadership. I'm proud of the work that the Department of Homeland Security does, and I'm grateful and honored to be able to lead them during this time.
I don't think enough emphasis can be put on the fact that over 12 million unvetted illegals. We don't know the actual number because of all the gotaways. We're talking about known terrorists, murderers, rapists, other violent criminals, cartel members, gang members, drug dealers have been allowed in this country. Now Donald Trump is trying to clean that up. He's already closed the border. You've been a big part of that effort. It is sad that so-called leaders won't partner and enforce the laws of our land. That is a real tragedy to me today. I'll give you the last word.
I'm just so grateful that President Trump stopped the invasion. He secured that border immediately. We are not letting any more of those dangerous individuals into our country. Now we just need to get these perpetuators of violence out of our country to keep the American people safe.
Madam Secretary, thank you for your time.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.